Ooh, ducky. Oops, my bad. Hey, cool guy. Welcome to episode 2 of the Unusual Effect tutorial. Today we'll be understanding and going over the Properties tab in the particle system. So let's start by clicking on Create and naming our particle. So this is the front of the Properties window in Properties tab. And you can see in the front there's materials and stuff. I make some of my max particles either 500, but the minimum amount is 1000. So we're gonna pick some materials here. And what I said from the other video about how there are valve sprites and there are workshop sprites, you should mostly use the valve sprites. Only use workshop sprites if you have permission to. So I'm gonna find my own particle sprites that I made. And yes, you can also make your own particle sprites, but I'm going to find some of mine and pick one of mine. So next you want to click on Properties and go to Renderer. Renderer will show 4 different functions. There's Render Animated Sprites, Render Rope, Render Screen Velocity, Rotate, Render Sprite Trail. The ones I use the most, or the only one that I use the most, is Render Animated Sprites. Render Rope can be used at times for effects, but it's not really used at times for common effects. The tube on the bottom is not really used much in effects at all. So we're going to use rendered animated sprites. And for your particle to show, you have to go to emitter. We're going to explain operator and initializer in a bit, but we're going to go to emitter. In the emitter tab, there's emit noise, emit continuously, and emit instantaneously. Emit noise I don't really use often. I don't really see any effects that use that often, or at all. So emit continuously continues to emit for an amount of time until then, and then it just stops. Emit instantaneously just emits at an instant, it doesn't stop whatsoever. I'm going to make my effect emit instantaneously. There's my effect. Well, and it's moving too. To make the animation rate faster, you have to go to renderer and go to animation rate. Right now it's at 0.1, but we can change it to probably 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. It'll keep speeding up. Keep in mind that only animated sprites can have their movement speed changed. Next, we'll check out what's in Operator tab. So let's go to Operator, and right click and click on Add. There's going to be a lot of functions for Operator, like alpha fade and decay, alpha fade in random, alpha fade out random, color fade. I'm going to say this. There are some stuff in this function that I never tried. There are some, like say movement match particle velocities or maintain position along path, etc., etc. So I'm only going to show the few ones that I mostly tend to use at times on particles. So we can start with alpha fade and decay, which it literally just stands for alpha fade in and decay. It dies off when the animated sprite has completed its rotation. Alpha fade out just fades out when it completes its animation. color fade. Color fade changes into a different color at the end of the animation. Lifespan decay. Lifespan decay is the same thing as alpha fade and decay. After the animation ends, it restarts. Movement basic. Movement basic, it moves the particle either upwards, backwards, or sideways. Just like how flames would work. There's a whole lot in Operator that you guys can get to try out and test yourself, but I'm going to move on into Initializer. That's the most important stuff there. This is the Initializer tab. It has the positioning tools for particles and where you want to show it. We're gonna right click and click Add to show some of the properties in Initializer. So this is color random. Color random turns your particle into a different color, per se. It's better to be used when your particle is white, so you can turn it to any color in general. Lifetime random is the duration for the particle, and it's going to be how long you're going to play it for. Position modify offset. Position modify offset offsets from XYZ base, X being sideways, Y being up or down, and Z being back or forth. You can use the X, Y, and Z axis to move your particle wherever it should be positioned. We're going to start with the first 0 on the right end, which is our y-axis. You can put it to a minimum of 10 or 20 for the particle to float over the head, or you can leave the number to 0 and the particle will glow inside of the head. Position within sphere random is almost critical for most particles. It's used so the particle doesn't go off to anywhere like outside the boundaries except your character. It's highly suggested that you should put this on your particle so it doesn't do that. You can also control the space around the particle and its distances. Radius random, it works just as like radius scale. It's scaling your image, resizing it either to a small proportion or a large proportion. Rotation random. Rotation random rotates the particle at the number you set it to, like 360 or 180 or 90 degrees. It rotates the particle in a full circle. This is the end for the Initializers tab. There are a few more stuff in the initializers that I didn't go over, and I wish you can comment down below and ask what these are for, or you can try to toy with them and like try to test them out, see what they do. So next we'll be talking about the children's tab. How the children's tab normally works is that you would have to have another particle in your file, and you could call it anything in general, but you'd have to set up the particle by clicking on new on the top right, naming what the particle will be named, and then go to your first particle that you made and go to the children's tab, and now they'll both be grouped up. In the Constraints tab, there are most advanced stuff. In the Force Generator tab, including some also pretty advanced stuff that you guys can ask down in the comments below, and I'll try to see if I can answer in general. Now that you learned a little bit about the Properties tab and what it has, you guys can test it out and try to toy with it, while in the next episode, we'll learn how to make an unusual effect from scratch. Also, do you like my computer fan?